Hello, everyone, and welcome along to the new episode or new series or new version, whatever, of the Paddock Piss after the Russian Grand Prix. I do sound a bit unprepared for this, but I'm joined with a lot of help with my friends here. Adil Chennai, Marinella Baby is here. We've got Babaji, we've got Kapil, and not so Masu. Welcome along, guys.
Hello, thanks for having me again. Always
We
great.
love that. Yep. Always good to have you. Okay, hello to others as well, in case you've fallen asleep.
Some people seem to be busy, but that's fine.
No, I was talking with my mic off. I apologize. Hello, guys.
Hello, hello.
Hi. So,
there we go. We have the gang. So there's 5 of us today, isn't it? It's quite a lot of people for one race, but okay. For one race that didn't really have a lot.
Yeah, that's why we're going to give multiple accounts of the same race to both the viewers.
Okay. All right, let's start with something that we normally start with. First thoughts, keep it brief. Let's start with you, Masoom. I think you've joined us for the first time here. Not the first time, I think second or third time, I think.
I think I've been there for one of the other podcasts we have, but this is my first time on Paddock Piss.
Paddock Piss, yes, correct. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this has started off. I think if someone had asked me in one word on how I would describe yesterday's race, I would have gone with controversial in terms of stewards. I think more than the race itself, what made the race so interesting was the various decisions taken by the FIA, and I think what are your thoughts on that?
Me, the FIA decision.
Yep.
The steward's decision, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think one of us mentioned not so long ago that there is inconsistency in stewards themselves because they do keep changing every race. So I think you're going to get a slightly different view from different races.
You think we should save that topic once you've covered the brief reviews from each
Yeah.
of the,
Let's go on with brief thoughts first. Let's move on to you, Kapil.
Oh, yeah. Summary of the race. Uneventful, controversial, and boring.
Okay, fair enough. Baba?
For me to summarize, I think the quali was more exciting than the race, and I was hoping for something spicy, but Lord Vettel couldn't deliver it just a bit later. So yeah, I guess that's it for me.
Yeah, I think I'd echo your thoughts on that one. Quali was a bit more exciting than the race. I think this is the first race in the last 2 or 3 years that I actually missed the race start. I think I joined when the safety car was on.
Same. I can't believe that's the coincidence. I missed the first 2 laps, and then I was like, "What's wrong?" And then people informed me about the crashes. So yeah, this is kind of the different odd timing which we used to.
Oh yeah, it was an hour earlier than usual, wasn't it?
Yes.
Because I was still in bed and I suddenly saw the notification come up. The lights are out. Okay, I'll move on to myself. As I was saying, quali probably more exciting than the race. The race probably only got exciting with that penalty of Hamilton, but obviously we knew that it was not really going to affect him as much as we wanted it to. Well, that's quite a sadistic way to put it, but you get what I mean.
Yep. It's quite an unfortunate sight that when a person gets a 10-second penalty, which is almost a year in F1 terms, still finishes exactly around the same place he's supposed to. So yeah, I was half expecting him to come back and take Verstappen's place too. So I'm glad that he just finished P3, I guess. Adil, what are your thoughts on the penalty being insignificant?
Well, I think the penalty being insignificant is not true. I think it didn't change the race result in any way except for P2. Hamilton would have probably finished P2 instead, because I think the mediums were a very, very good tire yesterday. There's no doubt about that. The only sort of battle I would have liked to see is Bottas versus Hamilton on track, but I think Bottas would have gotten the overcut done.
Yeah, that's probably a fair assumption. There are many Hamilton fans who insisted that he would still win with the via strategy, but that was just a pipe dream. I agree that Bottas would have probably got the edge on them. Probably the fight would have been with Verstappen and Hamilton on the different strategies with the car, with the difference of performance. Yeah, Black Sheep.
So I was just referencing to the conversation we had last night when we spoke about this, and I think Hamilton ended or finished about 18, 19 seconds, something like that, behind Bottas. That's still a good 7-8 seconds, isn't it? Out
29 seconds.
29 seconds behind Bottas.
But you also have to consider that Hamilton was stuck in traffic.
He stuck in traffic? At what point?
Not stuck in traffic, but he had to get through a few cars.
Yeah, I mean,
not really.
Not.
I mean,
Dude, he came out ahead of the Renaults, so he didn't have anyone but Kvyat, Vettel, and Perez ahead of him. Vettel let him pass literally within the lap that he got close to him.
2 laps, yes.
Kvyat pitted on the same lap that Hamilton got behind him, and I think he didn't really overtake Perez. He got him on the pit stop anyway because he was one of the late pit. Pit
Perez
stoppers.
was the last to pit on the soft.
So the only 2 cars that he sort of phased in quotes were Vettel and Kvyat.
Yeah, I think Masoom, what is your take on this?
I don't think it was that significant. Maybe 3 to 4 seconds. I think that difference came because of the strategy, like how inconsistent the soft hard strategy. We know that the Mercedes, because of its extremely high downforce, it is a car that is extremely hard on the tires, and I'm pretty sure because of the penalty, Hamilton was not at his best mental state. And I think ultimately it's a strategy that Bottas took that made the difference in pace. Because we saw that after Hamilton pitted on from the softs, we saw that Bottas set multiple fastest laps to build the gap.
So you are saying that even if Hamilton didn't have the penalty, Bottas would have pipped him, right?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, he was on the better strategy anyway. I think that's what we all saying.
Yep, that's true. The battle, we missed an interesting battle with Verstappen, but I think that would have been an evenly matched battle with the different strategies, and Verstappen being on the optimal strategy. But yeah, you can't ask for much. I don't like to think the fact that people are approaching that he wasn't necessarily in a good mood. That's why he didn't push, because he wasn't in a good mood post the end of the qualifying also, as he was about to get probably shafted into the Q2. But he came up and gave a brilliant Q3, like earth-shattering Q3, I would say, in terms of his lap which he did. So I feel that he's more of a Michael Jordan-esque person who performs even better when he's triggered. So I don't think that's flying the reason that he was not feeling it to race or something.
I agree with you, but on a slightly different note, I think at that level, being Lewis Hamilton, you wouldn't just give up and just not push, because you never know what may happen in the race. He's experienced enough to know that anything can happen. He's not going to give up on an opportunity.
Don't forget, I think he came onto the radio as soon as he came out of the pits, saying that now I have to save these stars till the end. You should have pitted me later. So yeah, I think clearly it could have been a factor of tire management as well. It may not have just been.
And in terms on that, let me tell you, we talked about this last night also. Someone touched upon it. So basically, if he knew that he had to serve the time penalty in the pits, what Mercedes did is the optimal thing. Hamilton was considering the fact that the time will be added to him post the race, which is not the case. So he was saying that message because he was assuming that he had to serve the penalty at the end of the race. So that's why once post the pit stop, he started whining about how he needs to manage the tires and all. But in hindsight, Mercedes is the most perfect call, because you want to serve the stop and go as soon as possible before you can actually make your race. So there's no way I'd see where he actually had a bad race, other than of course the stewarding.
My moment of the race, though, I think before we move into the standings, my moment of the race was when was a contrast between Hamilton and Ricciardo getting the penalties. I think the moment Ricciardo got the penalty, he said, "Oh shit, my bad. I'll drive faster," and he did.
Yeah,
I think that is the kind of mentality that, or a lot of people say that non-Hamilton fans are, to a sense, unreasonably toxic about him, but that's not true. It's not unreasonable. Everyone has their reasons for hate, like whatever it is. But I think the positivity that Ricciardo showed in an adverse situation is exactly the mentality that we expect from from a world championship contender or a world championship mentally world championship contender.
True, true, true. But no one wins unless they're used to winning. So let's give him that piece of cake at least.
Of course, he is a
Regardless.
six-time world champion, so every decision
Yeah.
has a higher impact. I think that's a great point to probably address one of the questions from our members of the community, and I think Masum, you probably start with it. The question was from Tani. He said, "Do you think the stewards should reconsider the way they handle high-priority incidents rather than going chronologically?" I don't know what the meaning of going chronologically means, but
As in,
uh,
events occur
as events
in
occur.
that.
Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. So, do you think
Uh,
and so let's break that for first part. First part of the question. What do you think, Masu?
So I'm not sure if they actually handle it in order because I do believe that I think I remember at one occasion where actually one of the incidents were to be decided after the race, while the one after that was immediately dished out. But I think generally everyone can agree that the penalties, the stewards need to be more consistent with their decisions. I think that's something that we can notice generally because if we look at the Leclerc Stroll incident and first of all, before that, I want to get this out of the way. Hamilton incident, that's a completely new case. There is no precedent set before. So I think in that aspect, we could say that now we have to make sure that every decision in a similar light should be given the same penalty. But in talking about other penalties, we can see that the Stroll Leclerc incident is very similar to what happened between Hamilton and Albon, and I think they should have been given the same penalty, whether it was a first lap or not.
True. As for the rule about Hamilton being bamboozled, he was just uninformed or ignorant. I would say there's a clear standing rule that you cannot, in the FIA rule book or whatever you might call it, that you cannot take standing starts on the pit lane, no matter where it is. So, in that scenario, to punch that up,
But
Russia.
let me clarify slightly. Not You can't do that in the fast lane, in the pit lane. You can
Yeah,
do it on the closer to the garages.
yeah, the merge lane actually.
Correct.
Yeah. So what my point was to complete that Russia's pit exit is way down the straight. So that's where he could have possibly, but there might have been some confusion between the team / Hamilton, and yeah, and in terms of that, Hamilton clearly asked for permission, and it is his team's fault. It's nothing to do with Hamilton.
Yeah.
He asked for permission, they gave him the green light, and you can't do anything more than that. So yeah, same thing.
I do sympathize with him slightly because he did check with the team, and I mean, from his point of view, it was nothing intentionally or from his own accord that he did that got him the penalty. It was just the team not knowing what they cannot get away with.
Yeah, that's been the second time if you forget, because in Monza also he asked for the go ahead and the team called him in when they should have clearly kept him out, but that all worked out for the better. So yeah.
Yeah. I have a point to make about the stewarding thing. It's just a very general observation. I do think in the last sort of year and a half of last season plus this season, the stewarding has been pretty good, a lot better than it used to be back in 2017, 18 at least a few years ago. Would you guys agree?
It's
Yep.
been more consistent, but I think this compared to in 2019, I think this season we have seen like a bit of a tank.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that probably brings us into the second half of that question quite well. If you look at the Leclerc Stroll incident, now that incident, a lot of people said it should be a penalty. A lot of people said that it was a first lap incident. A lot of people said Stroll was too tight on the corner. Now, I'm not going to comment on that, on what the stewards should have done or should not have done. But do you think Leclerc, the question is, do you think Leclerc and Ferrari are slipping under the radar of the stewards? Like, for example, another incident which you could look at was the Spain seatbelt incident where he just got a reprimand. Masum, let's again, what do you think about that?
Which incident in Spain?
Do you think Leclerc and Ferrari are slipping under the radar of the stewards? Like, for example, the first lap incident yesterday with Lance, and the seatbelt incident in Spain where he just got a reprimand?
I think, first of all, I think to clarify is that in Spain, Leclerc actually gave an explanation later in the race afterwards that in the seatbelt actually has 4 buckles and only one of those buckles were off, and he did one slow lap to check if his engine is fine, and he only realized that in his push lap when he started pushing. So I think in that aspect there is some confusion and there is some misinformation. So I think in that case, I think the FIA did. I think the mistake from FIA is that like they did not look into the incident immediately. They looked at it in the next weekend. So in that aspect, I would agree that FIA do give a bit more leeway with Ferrari and FIA in general. And I don't believe it's a completely unbiased entity as well. Actually, I want to add something to that, but I think we'll come to that later on. And even in this incident, I think the only explanation there is that with this incident, I think it's a prime example of like they only noted it, they did not even investigate it. And I think if it was any other driver, they would have investigated it. So I think Ferrari drivers are actually getting a bit more like leeway in terms of penalties and in investigations.
So I actually agree with you up to an extent, but I think it's more Leclerc than it is Vettel because I mean, if you look at Vettel, I think no one needs to look further than Canada 2019 to really
Yep.
discuss Vettel. But I do agree with you. I think Charles Leclerc is kind of like the golden boy at Ferrari, and it's possible that I'm not saying it's possible. I can't really talk about other people's intentions, but it does seem like people are being a little lenient towards him.
Yeah.
So I'd like to add something to this. In terms of Leclerc versus FIA saga, which has been going on since, let's say, Monza last year, I think each of his incidents is somewhere leaning between a straight no-brainer penalty and lots of gray matters. So there's not something to like exactly pinpoint and say, okay, that this can be easily reprimanded. The most closest thing that it came to was yesterday's incident. That's why this whole thing has been brought up. Otherwise, each of the one, you take the Japan GP last year at Suzuka when he was driving around with damage, throwing around debris everywhere, which was extremely dangerous at those high speeds, especially at the 130R section. I think he asked the team that time, do I have damage? Do I come in, etc. I think it was the other way around where he was saying that I'm fine, the car feels fine, and he was continuing. So there's lots of confusion there. And the one with the Hamilton incident in Monza, where he was just weaving in the braking zone towards T3 or something like that, the second chicane. So all these things are they're not a slam dunk penalty. So we can't necessarily say that it is a no-brainer. But yeah, yesterday's incident, I would say, again, it can be termed as racing incident or something. But yeah, I would disagree that Leclerc is getting the favoritism. But yeah, he's bound to get reprimanded soon enough if he does something more obvious than this.
I think the Verstappen Leclerc incident in Austria is clear that probably there is no bias. I just think that the decisions themselves are inconsistent. I think that's.
I think something else I want to point out to you is that we know that in F1 there is a very active betting scene. So, like, I don't think I'm just being hypothesizing here, and we actually found a very interesting bit of information from this weekend that this weekend the FIA head steward was Mika Salo, and the Hamilton's penalty it was informed to the Mercedes team in lap 7, but prior to that information is already public knowledge. And the rumor is that Mika Salo leaked this information to a Finnish newspaper, Finnish TV, not newspaper. And as a consequence of that, it was informed earlier. And we know that people who do flash bets, this is going to affect their decisions. And I think even in this case we can apply. I mean, there might be people who bet Stroll won't finish above P6, P7, and I don't believe. And I think if the stewards are aware of that, that's definitely going to add a bias, and it's definitely going to favor a large chunk of the people who have betted. Like another angle on it, which I think could be happening.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first, folks.
Conspiracy theory galore.
Stewards are biased towards nothing but their own pockets. I'm joking, of course.
Can we do that here? Can I make a quick buck?
I'm
At
joking,
IRC.
but that's a very
That's a great
interesting.
idea, man.
Yeah,
That's a
we
ve-
should open another server where we actually do betting on our own races, dude. That's actually quite a good
That's
idea,
illegal.
dude.
That's
I'm
illegal.
I'm
Dude.
happy
Yeah.
to take away one penalty
That
point from
server's
tennis.
name is -E.
Yeah.
That
Go
I
ahead
think
and reprimand them.
I think we can host that server outside India and it should be fine. But anyway, because I think we can move back to the race.
Let's
But
move
yeah,
on
We
to
haven't
that's
actually
actually
started
but
speaking about the race and the finishes yet.
actually that's a
So,
very interesting theory by Masoom and definitely one to think about. But moving on to probably the standings of the race,
Yep.
we can probably start look no further than we already covered Lance Stroll and the incident. I don't think we need to cover that any longer. Carlos Sainz. What are your thoughts on Sainz's penalty? Sorry,
I think he
Sainz's
just made
uh,
an honest
incident.
mistake.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure he realizes that at Russia, I mean, you have to make some positions if you can at lap one, because once everyone gets going, it's a difficult track to overtake on. So you can imagine that he'd be quite charged up, looking to make positions on the first lap. So when he does go into the runoff area, you expect him to slow down and navigate through those styrofoam, whatever they've placed. But I can understand why he hasn't, and in the heat of the moment, he's just driving through it with so much speed that he's not able to turn and avoid the wall. It's a silly mistake to make. Um, yeah, I can't really say anything else.
I lost
But,
some
yeah.
respect for Mr. Science yesterday. I'm
You
not
know,
gonna
I think
get it back.
I think what probably happened was he probably saw Verstappen doing the same and probably followed the same path.
Yeah, I think it happens when you're looking at your right rear view mirror and trying to rejoin the
Yeah.
track, and not looking at where you and you're so confident about where you can place your cars. It just happens with the best drivers at times.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a stupid, very very careless mistake
It-
from a
it-
Formula One
it
driver
doesn't.
who is
it
joining
never-
Ferrari next season. Let's not forget that.
It's happened to nobody who's gone outside of the track. We were just discussing that yesterday. So people have hit the barriers while on the track, but off the track,
Roman Grosjean did better than him.
I was just gonna say Roman Grosjean to Ferrari instead. Maybe.
dude, Roman was literally under an overtaking move, and he had to take avoiding action, and then he had no angle to take on that corner, so he just went through it like, yeah, but that's highly understandable. Nothing compared to this. This is a Ferrari driver next year who's one of the top 20 drivers on the planet, and he hit a wall at full speed.
Do you
Outside of
think
the
that
track.
there's an element of not being prepared, or they just didn't practice going off on this corner, and maybe just the speed that he carried in the heat of the moment just caught him off guard completely?
I don't think it's the speed, it's more the angle in which he got. So he didn't necessarily go extremely wide on the sausage curb. So the car was probably loaded way towards on one side under heavy fuel load. So and then the turn in just wasn't enough for him. He obviously saw where he was going. He just miscalculated that one tiny bit was enough to ricochet him all the way to the middle of the track. So yeah, it was the angle at which he approached. And
Considering
Yeah,
that it's such a major part of the race and that it may be expected, given the the non-grippy nature of this track, do you think that the driver should at least attempt taking this escape route once or twice so that they're not caught off guard in race conditions? I mean, to me at least, it definitely felt like this is the first time he's taking this corner and he just made a complete, well, screw up of it.
you're got quite a right point there. I wouldn't follow the practices so much, so I can't really tell if someone was running wide there and actually practicing that. Other than I'm taking a guess, it would be Roman. Roman probably got a lot of practice on that bollard, but yeah, I don't know about.
Probably took out
Sam.
all his frustrations on it.
Yeah, like this mass chicane now, turn 2.5.
Anyways, moving ahead to George Russell. Thoughts?
In chat.
He got a
Didn't he
battle.
have-
Yeah.
He got a battle of Bull, so I think he's pretty happy with that.
It was very interesting to see him battle his friends, Lando and Albon. It just gave me flashbacks of the pandemic days when they were virtually racing. It was a very heartwarming moment, and that lasted for all of 1.5 laps when he just was completely eaten up by them. But in the
Yeah.
moment, it was very nice, very cute.
He was almost ahead and he flat spotted his tires into turn 15, 16 or 13, whatever that is, that fast kink into the right-hander. It was quite a shame that his entire race got compromised from that. I think he did like 25 pit stops or something. I don't know. I think it was 2 or 3 something. He did the most pit stops probably in the race, and he still managed to catch up to Latifi towards the end. So I don't know. It's just a George Russell race. Brilliant, but nowhere significant in terms of points. Black Sheep, what do you think of those 3? Did you watch them 3 going around?
Yeah, I was properly hyping George up when he did successfully defend at the end of the straight from Albon and Norris.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. That was great driving. I'm going to plow ahead because we've got many drivers to go through. I'm going to club a few together. A bit of a lull race for Grosjean and Latifi. Am I right in saying this is the first race Grosjean has finished below Magnussen this year so far?
Probably.
Is that right?
No,
I'm going to take your word on that.
He has finished below in when they scored points in with that track.
Hungary.
Hungary, yeah. Because I think Magnussen scored the sole point for Haas.
Yes, after Hungary, I think this is the only second one. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we were saying he was struggling with track limits and stuff, but.
Yeah, I think he pit towards the end too. That's why he's below Latifi. So he was one of the guys who went into the pits with Norris towards the end of the Grand Prix because of some issues, I think. So that's pushed him below Latifi. Otherwise, Latifi was probably sitting dead last. Then we have Kimi Göttingen. So Kimi was... Okay, so talking about Göttingen here, he was on the optimal strategy, starting on the hard, stretching those tires very well, but just the car wasn't there to help him. Being on a half a second slower car than last year is not progress. So yeah, I'd say it's a decent result for him. His teammate fared much better. So yeah.
Yeah, good race by Giovinazzi though, I think. I think he made a couple of moves as well. I think one of them on Grosjean and another on Magnussen, maybe?
Yeah, it was on Magnussen, exactly on Magnussen. Yeah, it was
pretty good race by him.
Yeah, definitely a stronger performance compared to his counterpart.
I'm pretty sure he's under a lot of pressure right now because we know that the driver who is set to replace him scored a double podium in the F2 race today, in the preceding day. So
is all that confirmed?
Yeah, Giovinazzi is for sure going, I think. Kimi probably has a contract offered to him by Sauber, so it's up to him to decide now if he wants to stay.
Yep. So I mean, in case that Kimi does leave, he needs to make a strong case why he needs to be the driver in that particular seat.
Yep. I think it was pretty much a similar race for Magnussen. It was a bit of a bounce back by Giovinazzi as well as Magnussen together.
Magnussen had a brilliant start, so let's not forget. He went in the first lap, he went from P18 to P9. But that again is the Haas, which is on average a second slower than last year around this circuit. It didn't do him justice. So Magnussen did fairly well in the first lap. That's a huge amount of overtakes. So kudos to him. Before we move ahead, let's talk about Lando Norris. He finished P15, but it was a very admirable and commendable race from him, the way he drove on those old hards. Yeah. He was defending till the last moment with those 50 lap or 45 lap old tires on hards. I had no clue what was the end where. And then he just tell me.
So I'm not sure what was happening with the strategy for Norris as well as Albon when they pitted them so early and put them on their hards. Surely they were not expecting them to go to the end of the race with that. That was 47 laps.
So what I suspect is that both of them started on the softs, right? So I believe that their teams at that point did not want to them to stay on the softs. In this, they would have thought go on the hards. I think speaking about it, I think they were expecting to take this hards till the end.
Yeah, they put it under safety car conditions at lap 2.
Yeah,
and it was a very opportunistic or very optimistic strategy to take those hards to the end. Yes, grip is the wear is a little low, but it's pushing an entire 100% race is pushing their luck.
The battle between P10, I guess at that point, was Albon, Norris, and I keep forgetting it was one more person who was with them. didn't really help him because he ended up what would have been a tire management race. He ended up battling so many people, defending so much, so hard, so that didn't really do him justice. And I think towards the end, by some heavy braking or something, he ended up flat spotting his tires really badly, and he just couldn't finish the race on vibration, so he had to pit. Otherwise, I guess he was bringing the car home. The lap
Yeah,
times weren't that off.
close,
He was
close
quite
but no
close.
dice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The fighting didn't actually help him, but yeah, commendable race. He was defending quite well against Albon on those really old tires. So yeah,
Well, you can't really opt for a strategy and say, "Oh, let's hope there's not going to be any fighting on the track."
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're there for. That literally is your job.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
Defend your
think
position.
I think what caught them out was that they expected the softs to not last that long for the other soft runners, but it towards the end it did end up being quite a durable tire compared to what is expected. So I think that's what uh, got this early pitting people off.
I think it's more the safety car timing which actually ruined the entire race because they couldn't really go on the yellow tire and go for another pit stop later on in the race. So they just had to put all their chips on the hard tire and finish the race. It was
But why
either
though? I believe they must have had another medium tires. And
no. So why would they do two pit stops?
No,
Uh,
just not pit then. If it's a lap one safety car,
for
why don't you pit
Norris,
on lap one?
For Norris, I have a theory that I'm not sure. Thing is, when Sainz had that crash, he wheeled onto the track. So I suspect Norris had to slam the brakes and potentially flat spotted those tires.
True,
That's
that's possible. That's possible too.
Okay, let's move
Well,
along. Raikkonen
it
and
is-
Vettel. Sorry, couple. You have
no,
something to add?
no. I was just thinking. See, he had just completed turn one. It's quite unlikely that he'll flat spot and lock up at such slow speeds. But then again, it's possible.
True, true. No, I'm still thinking that they were just trying to cover someone off in the safety car, and then they had no other option. They backed themselves out into the one stop, and hard was the only way to go. And he was probably going to get the tire home had he not overfought or like flat spotted them towards the end of the race or start
Yep.
vibration probably.
The young blood defend to the ends of the earth. Nature backfired on him at the end.
Because it is exactly for the point, that single point, which is P10. So that's even
Yeah.
more pressure. So yeah, I get it. Let's
think
talk
that's fine.
about Seb Vettel now. Mr. Chinoy, time for you to shine. How is that rear end alive?
Well, he did help Ferrari
Yeah.
this time around. in
Yeah, I
some way
think
or
I
other.
think Vettel. I mean, Ferrari identified that Vettel wasn't going anywhere. I think it was clear that given his pace, given at least his speed on a straight line and his struggle to overtake an Alfa Romeo, he wasn't going to get points. So they sacrificed his race. They favored Charles, and it worked out. I think Ferrari did maximize the points that were available to them.
Yep.
I was actually looking at the lap charts, and Vettel was actually keeping up with every other driver in the third sector, but they were losing a whole second in the first two sectors. So, I mean, they couldn't really do anything given the lack of straight line speed.
True.
Ferrari
So
being a Ferrari now.
what do you think about the new news which is coming, Chinoy, about the low end being fixed, and then probably they don't have to shave off the speed to get the front end grip
They'll
from the next
find a
race
way.
onwards?
They'll find a way to cock it up. That's
Huh,
what I feel.
that's I
Why would you
wholeheartedly
give-
agree with that. I agree with that. completely.
Why would you give Chennai and Ferrari fans hope? It's the last thing that they need this
Nah,
season.
it's a bunch of Pepegs with their Pepega brothers.
And
Yeah.
everyone on the stream, you can play that clip from Shawshank Redemption. Hope is a dangerous thing. I think it's very good now.
To add to that, given that Vettel was not definitively faster than the Alpha, we do realize that we can see that how much the Ferrari were betting on their engine power being retained, because I think the Alpha has a really good chassis compared to the Ferrari right now.
Yeah.
It is looking like the better package in the Ferrari
So-
series.
So I think every time we come back to Vettel, Leclerc probably shines a poor light at him, because let's not forget Leclerc is on another level altogether. That guy is attaining God status very soon in his career. So we shouldn't be comparing him to Vettel, because I wholeheartedly believe Leclerc is on another level. To drive that amazing piece of engineering to such a high place is just unfathomable. How he does it, minor corrections, absolutely smooth driving, and then staying on pace on top of that. That's just otherworldly. Let's not compare it to Vettel. Let's wait for next year.
So
Then
I want to bring. I don't remember which track it was. I think it was. Was it Belgium? No. Before, what is the track before Belgium?
Spain.
Silverstone?
In no,
Spain,
in
yes.
sorry, I'm talking about Silverstone.
Okay.
Helmut Marko, who probably has one of the quickest drivers of all time on his team right now. Max Verstappen, all said and done about him, he's a very, very quick driver. Helmut Marko said he does not know how Charles Leclerc puts in those lap times. It just does not make sense to him. And I'm not going to say Leclerc's better than Verstappen or Verstappen better than Leclerc, but we have a very bright future in Formula One for both of them. I mean, to be able to be privileged to watch both of them grow.
yeah, true.
I think that covers.
Well-
That's my pit on both Leclerc and Verstappen. But
Yeah, Sam, spin, Lala. Let's move on to points now. It's my time
Yes.
to shine.
No. You are not allowed to speak on this one.
Okay, we're running short on time, so Baba, forget about Albon.
Yep.
Yes.
You animals. Just look at that.
I think we've covered Albon in pretty much the same strategy as
I've got
Norris.
2 Christian Horners on the podcast covering their little baby's ass. Okay, fine.
The guy had the same strategy as Norris and still finished in a points at the end.
Yeah, I think something I'd like to point out just 2 minutes is that when you compare Leclerc and Vettel and compare Verstappen and Albon, the contrast is very similar. If it goes with the onboards, I see that both Albon and Vettel are lacking medium speed compared to their teammates.
Oh, that's a
It's
very
a-
interesting analogy. Oh, so in terms of the delta, how much of a but in terms of the other corners, the slow speed and fast speed corners, how much? I'm sure Albon isn't matching Verstappen. So what's the delta over there in terms of percentage?
It's very less. Albon is keeping up in high speed and low speed quite well, but in medium speed, Albon is way off. Like he's not able to carry the entry speed, or when he does that, he loses the car.
Somebody said from the Red Bull team that Verstappen and Albon don't have the same car. Do you think
I
that
don't believe that. I don't believe that. Not once.
I mean, the Milton Keynes outfit is one of the most they're extremely well equipped, and I don't believe that at all.
So let's not forget, please, that man qualified P10 below Stroll, below Norris, below everybody on the clear grid. So we know his quali is weak, but P10, okay, fine. Let's move on.
Fair
Great
enough.
drive
Let's
from
move
Great drive from that man.
Enjoyed watching.
The Red Bull is designed and tuned at every track for Max.
Yes.
That's it.
Fine.
Okay.
I think it was just a good sight watching Albon, Norris, and Russell go toe to toe.
I think we're moving on to some greener pastures now. Some happiness.
Yep,
AlphaTauri, once again. Good result.
yep, amazing. I kind of felt sad that Kvyat couldn't get Ocon for like 20 or something laps.
Oh, yes, man.
Sad to watch. I was like thinking now, and then that's where
But
I
it's
think.
understandable. The Renault is so quick in a straight line, isn't it?
Yep. And he got with this thing dangerously close towards the end of the race, but still it was no dice. It was never really looking like he was going to make a move. So I
Yeah.
guess it's fine. Because Danny had the optimal strategy. He had the best place to be actually. I think he was P11 or something. He started on hards. He got the fastest run up. He was driving in clean air most of the time. And I
Running
think
P3 at a point.
what?
Isn't it? He was running P3 at a point.
Yeah, he was running P3 at a point. He was P2 actually at a point. I think he was just. I think he was leading the race at one point when everyone pitted. or something.
No. He wasn't. He wasn't leading the race at any point.
I think Ocon is flying on the soft stint. I think he was definitely faster than Ricardo, but I think after the pit stop, all those laps stuck behind Vettel ultimately costed him.
Yeah, that's true. But if we're staying to AlphaTauri, so Kvyat, not a shame. I was expecting him to perform more at the at his hometown. So let's move on to Gasly, dude. That medium stint and that overtake on Albon. My God, what a move! That was some amazing shit. That was some spicy shit. I love it. Each time.
That overtake on Albon was, I think, more Albon's mistake than Gasly actually making the move. I think two corners earlier, I remember. I think Albon just messed it up completely. He just didn't go wide on the entry for one of those corners in the middle sector and just completely compromised his line coming out.
True. I'm not talking in aspects of racing. I'm talking about poetic justice, more on that side. Uh,
Justice.
it wasn't necessarily about racing. It was a basic clean cut overtake. The tires was fresher. Albon made a mistake. There was all the
Yeah.
pieces that fit into it. So yeah, it was quite a lovely move from him. I was quite fearing at one point as to the pit stop of by AlphaTauri. I'm like, they're gonna push him out of the points, but he just did a massive good racer, got him into points.
Yeah, consistently in the points this year, Gasly with an AlphaTauri.
It just shows how that consistency plays such a big role. And poetic justice, like you said, fantastic overtake on Albon. Just so sweet for the AlphaTauri team.
Let's move on to the Renaults now. Masum, did you have something to add on the AlphaTauri, or you would want to say about Ocon
No.
itself? So yeah, let's talk
Yeah,
about
I
Ocon.
think the AlphaTauri they had a good racing. Yeah, that's it. Nothing to add.
Now let's move. Tell me about Ocon. What are you saying about the soft stand?
Like
I think it
in
was good.
soft, I think he was running P3 or P4 at one point, and he was flying. And I think he was lapping much quicker than uh, than his teammate. But after his pit stop, he was stuck behind Vettel, and he couldn't pull that overtake off immediately. Maybe because he's a bit rusty after the season off. And finally, like when he was asked to let his teammate pass. After that, he didn't have the pace on the hard stand at all. He was just falling back. He was slower than Charles, and I think that was very surprising to see.
He was stuck behind Vettel for such a long time, and literally the lap after he gave Ricciardo the position, the very next lap, like a boss, Ricciardo just pulled that move easily, moved past. I'm not sure what went on in Ocon's mind at that point.
No, it's just Danny's Chad balls at the braking zone. Always outbreaks the person next to him. So yeah,
Chad balls. Okay.
that was just amazing by Ricardo. We know him for that. And what was more funnier for me was the team orders. That was the worst team orders I've seen in quite some time. It was neither Ocon actually backing off and him choosing where to back off, and I entirely blame Danny Rick's penalty on Ocon because he didn't necessarily give him space, or there was no angle to take the turn properly, safely, without actually avoiding all sorts of trouble. Kapil, you're going to say something?
Yeah, the the car as a whole was fantastically poised for the Grand Prix. I mean, they had amazing front straight line speed, which was very crucial for many overtakes, just completely slicing through Ferrari. Having said that, I feel like Ocon wasn't able to drive as well in dirty air, and I guess in the start of the second stint, I just felt he drove too hard and didn't preserve his tires like maybe Danny did. Of course, Danny was in a different strategy, but like it just was a little disappointing to see Leclerc finishing ahead of Ocon at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is more foreshadowing. I would say that again, points does not say anything about bad about Esteban Ocon. It's only saying good about Charles, because
Absolutely.
that is an amazing drive. He actually pulled away from Ocon. I thought they would start tussling, and all up to that point, I think the running theme of this Grand Prix is dirty air. Because even if you're close by and overtaking, there are some spots, but you just can't follow the car through all the sections quite easily to line up the overtake up until the last turn. So that was the running theme, I guess. Everyone in free air was doing quite lovely times and beautifully pulling ahead. So I think Danny Rick also was able to pull away because he was driving in clean air. And at some point of time, even Charles then got the free air, so they were trying to pull away. And same thing goes for Ocon. That's why he was able to defend against Kvyat, who was trying to fight him at all times. So I think the running theme up until the midfield was dirty air, which is affecting all the drivers in actually performing best.
Let's not forget it also hampered Hamilton in a way because of this penalty spent. So
I think the issue of dirty air and the inability to overtake has been further exacerbated by the change in regulations regarding the engine modes. Because they can no longer turn it up; they can only deploy additional overtake. So I think potentially we could have had more overtakes had that rule still been alive. Like was not alive.
That's true. You just needed to stick to the car up until the last sector, but that's literally one of the hardest things. The only overtaking is on the straight, the long straights, out the back straight or the main straight. So if you cannot line up the car right close up to there, you probably won't get the overtake done. And that's like probably one of the most hardest things regarding the track changes, the turns, and the dirty air. So yeah, Black Sheep, what do you think about Ricardo, Charles, and the lot?
I didn't don't disagree with any of that. I do feel happy at the fact that Renault is bouncing back, is making a bit of a comeback. It was a bit bizarre for me to see the difference in qualifying between the Renaults and the McLarens. Renaults were way further up. I would have thought that it would be quite evenly matched. But I think all in all, it's good to see Renault do well. It was, I think it's around about time. I think for the last 6 years now, since 2014, they've just been slagged off by everybody, all their customers and every driver, etc. So it's good to see some performance come back.
Yeah, they're again back to being the best of the rest, which is a good sign. But yeah. So,
yeah, I want to eagerly move on to the next guy. Sergio Perez, fantastic drive for me. In a car that's not been upgraded because of, Mr. Stroll not having enough money, I guess. After his son takes the car to the garage every weekend. But yeah, and a non-upgraded car for 2 weekends in a row. Fantastic drive by him.
how much do you think the upgrades were a difference? Because people are making it seem like it's night and day.
I think there is quite some difference. I mean, I remember at Mugello where Stroll was breezing past everybody, and on the other hand, Perez was, everybody was breezing past Perez.
Yeah, but Perez out-qualified him also. Sorry, Mason. Perez out-qualified him in Mugello too. So that's quite weird. Yeah, tell me, Mason.
In Tuscany, it was down to Stroll not being able to finish his final lap due to the Ocon crash.
Yeah.
And I think the upgrade worked really well in Tuscany, but from Tuscany to Russia, one key change was that they changed the suspension to the current Merc spec. So they're currently doing some adaptation around that, and I think in Russia, I think Perez had the faster car because we saw that through the weekend, Stroll was consistently slow, and I think the delta was. I think Stroll has shown that he is a driver who at least has the same raw pace as Perez over the last couple of weekends, and I think the upgrades that Racing Point bought for Stroll's car this week has not been exactly working, given the performance over the weekend.
Yeah, Kapil, you got anything to add to that?
No, we can move on. I mean, this fine performance showed that Racing Point's good, and Perez is the lead driver in the team.
Yeah, Perez finished on track 8 seconds off Hamilton, so that's a major kudos to him. Probably would have been 18 seconds, but yeah, let's just look at that 8 seconds and be happy.
Moving on to the podiums, Lewis Hamilton, controversy.
Yes, we've covered a lot of Hamilton.
Yeah, but I have one question on this point. He was given 2 5-second penalties, but nowhere was it mentioned that it was a stop-go penalty. So was there an option that Mercedes could opt for to have that time added at the end of the race?
I guess that's a no, because every time we've seen it in recent times, up until if it's just the last lap incidents or the last post the last strategy incidents, only then the time is added towards the end. Otherwise, they always, from my recent memory, serve it in the pits if it's pre the pit stop.
Yes, but that is when they specifically mentioned that it is a stop-go penalty. Here, there was no mention of that, and there was clearly mentioned time penalty plus 5 seconds twice.
No, I'm saying that any sort of time penalty given, I'm not necessarily saying stop and go, you serve it in the pits. Any time penalty given pre-pit stop is usually served in the pit as much as I can.
Yes, usually, but do you think that had Mercedes opted to get it applied at the end of their race time, would have made a big difference, considering that he would have come out ahead of the rest of the field, would have had that clear air, which plays such a big major factor? Do you think that Mercedes might have gotten their strategy wrong?
We talked about it earlier. I don't think we saw that Hamilton only had to overtake, I think, Kvyat and Vettel, and I don't think it would have been a significant factor. I think the more important factor was the fact that he started on softs.
I absolutely agree with you, but maybe there was a chance where he could have.
On that, not only we said before also. So had that had the penalty not been applied at the pit stop itself, then Hamilton wouldn't have come in so early. If they had the option to go to the end and add the time at the end of the thing, then Hamilton would have pushed those softs, which had easily more life left in them, to get a gap ahead and come even much earlier out in the clean air, and then he would again push. But that was not the case. So they knew that they have to serve the penalty in the pit itself. So they did the next best thing and got it right out of the way as soon as possible, so they could build the race after that.
Interesting. All right.
Like, your thoughts on Mr. Sri Lanka?
I believe Black Sheep is away currently.
Oh,
Let's move on to Max.
I mean, sorry, I can just probably add a line on
yes,
about the
sure.
Black
Mr.
Sheep.
Sri Lanka needs your analysis.
Or Black Sheep's behalf. I think Hamilton is. I think he needs to probably start making his own decisions. You can blame the team all you want, but at the end of the day, you are a six-time world champion. I mean, if a driver like Charles Leclerc can call, who's got 2 years of experience, can call out the Ferrari
well,
strategists.
that's kind of
Hamilton should be
unfair.
no, I'm not saying it's completely his fault, but for example, starting in the fast lane, that is absurd. Like, I can't even picture a car starting in the fast lane or for doing a practice start in the fast lane. I don't know why he did it. I think he needs to take ownership over here. The question should not have gone to the team for it to be okay in the first place. It should just have been like every other driver does it in 3 practice sessions plus quali plus on the formation lap to the grid. So I think whatever penalty he got, he completely deserved. I don't mean this in a biased way. If it's very similar to Sainz hitting the wall. If you mess up your own race, you've got no one else to blame but yourself. The Monza issue, I can agree with, but the other driver saw it. He did not.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you there.
I just think that it's very similar to Sainz. If you hit a wall, or if you even want to start on the wrong side of the pit lane, you have only one person to blame. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and you're saying that he needs to take his own decisions, but let's not forget the reason Hamilton won all these last championships is because they're a well-geared team, so they trust each other. So
Absolutely, yeah.
you can't necessarily chalk it up to him questioning it. This is not Ferrari pit wall.
But you wouldn't wake up one morning and ask your dad if you can wear your shoes on the opposite foot.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
that
that's
is
how
not-
absurd. You have no idea, dude. If you picture a car starting on the wrong side of a pit lane, it will look weird to you. That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I agree that. I very much agree that. But yeah,
Fine, but yes, it is a very well-oiled team and there's trust, so fair enough. It happens.
And
Even the best
he
get it
would
wrong.
definitely ask them for permission. So he was skeptical. Otherwise, if he was so sure of what he was doing, he would have just done the start there. So
Why
I don't know if
do
that's protocol or what it
Why
was. I
do
don't
it
know.
is the question. But anyway, sorry, Masim, you were saying something.
I get it.
Yeah, I think more significantly, like something to note is that since I think for a long time we are seeing cracks in the armor of Mercedes after a long time. So it is very exciting to watch, I would say, as a Ferrari fan.
No, yeah, and totally. I think Hamilton knows that, or he probably got a little too used to the FIA looking past a few of his incidents. The most recent one being Silverstone speeding in the pit lane, where he was over 50 kilometers per hour at the pit lane entry. But yeah, I guess that it always comes around a full circle, doesn't it? Anyway,
I'll-
moving on to Verstappen.
Yeah,
Uh,
let's about him.
yeah, let's not
think
talk about
no-
Mr. Sri Lanka as Baba calls him any longer.
No words, I would say. An absolutely brilliant drive. Extracted them. I think Verstappen is extracting the maximum out of that car in every race at this point.
Yeah, it's become a running theme for Verstappen. There's an interesting fact that every race that Verstappen started, he's finished on podium. So, I mean, any race he's finished, I'll have to correct myself. Every race he's finished on the podium. And every race is uncharacteristically quite boring, I would say. But you know what they say, the more boring it looks, the more quicker it is. So, yeah,
Even in races where he's objectively not had a good car in the qualifying, he has brought it back in the race. If you remember in Hungary, the car was nowhere, but he got that into that podium position.
Yep, that's honest. That's Hungary would be a nice anomaly to my logic there, because that was a really good start from him, and he did a brilliant performance there. So yeah, that's about right. But
So the-
I just don't know how Verstappen does it in quali. That's my actual really stupefying for me. Like how he comes out from nowhere and just puts the car in between the Mercedes at times and somewhere just below them. So yeah, that's his one lap pace is scintillating.
we very well might be seeing another god level god tier performance from Verstappen, just like Leclerc. And the only thing that I found very interesting is how Verstappen was able to adapt. If you can recall that in the beginning of the race, he did complain to his race engineer about there being a lack of grip, and he was just not able to activate those tires. And well, he just put his head down and just head like focused and got the win at the end of the day. And I feel like that he turned it around very well given a slightly edgy situation in the middle of the race.
True. The only poor thing that happened to him is the unlucky thing is the start didn't really go in his favor. Otherwise, he could have probably gotten a run down to the Mercedes onto T1 and then made it things much more interesting. But yeah, that's just about it. Otherwise, his race was quite decent.
Yeah, and I
there
think
was one. Yep, go ahead.
no, I just was gonna say that people talk about Verstappen's raw pace, but I think how good he is on his tires is severely underrated. And I think the primary strength of Verstappen is his right foot. And I know that right foot is synonymous with driving quickly, but I mean this in a very literal sense. He is extremely gentle on the throttle and very precise on, not gentle but very precise on the throttle, and that really protects his tires through a stint. So yeah, just to add on to Kapil's point about him adapting and him being why he's probably reaching a godlike status. Air quotes, yeah. But sorry, Masum, go ahead.
Regarding that point, like regarding the start, he couldn't have done much. He was actually on the dirty side of the track, and we saw how and I think most of the people who gained big positions in the start were not on that particular side. So I think that's another factor.
True. So that's understandable. Let's move on to Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah.
A very long time since we saw him win.
Wait, before we get on to his race, do you guys think he purposefully opted for P3?
I was telling my girlfriend that at the start of the race. And
It was a little uncharacteristic to see him almost a second, almost 8 tenths of Hamilton. That was too slow, even for Bottas.
I think it was purpose.
Yeah, now that you said it's kind of making sense. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Highly suspect, yeah.
But
Because it is his track after all. That guy he's always finished in the points here every time he's been here since the Williams days.
his first podium was here, if I'm not wrong, right?
Podium, and he's never been out of points here at all since his career debut with all the teams he's been. So it's uncharacteristic, I would say. But yeah, you can say that. And I believe him. And let me ask your opinion about that. Do you think a B actually hit him down the straight? Because yeah, it was pretty weird in how he approached.
Yeah, he
T1.
suddenly lost the back end. I think he just lost focus for a second. I'm
Yeah,
not going to
even-
say. I think
believe-
he's a gentleman. I think he's a very, very nice person. I'm not going to talk about his today's one day. I'm not going to talk about whether he should or shouldn't be in Mercedes, whether he can take Hamilton on. But people like Vettel, people like Bottas are a dying breed. I think that I love seeing them on the grid purely because of their composure and the way they behave.
Yeah, exactly. I believe him that a B hit him. So yeah, it would have been fun if you would have got him into T1 and then just led the race from there, and then no penalty in the world would ever make sense, like to him losing the race. But yeah,
He had
It
won
was
the
quite-
race after Q2 because there was no way Hamilton was beating him on the soft and hard strategy.
yeah, I wanted him to beat him on track, and why? Like that would mean he destroyed him if you would be ahead of him on the medium tire or something. But then
Well,
probably
You do the math. The 10-second penalty and a 22-second deficit. You do the math. I'll leave. I think
yeah,
it was a
I know.
distraction.
It's easily he had him easily. There's no doubt. The more alarming thing is Perez is 8 seconds behind Hamilton. So let's not talk about the difference in timings. So yeah, it's fine.
Coming back to the point about the B and getting going off track into T2, there was a very clear direction given by by the race director that you had to take the ball out. So the driver instinctively knows when he's losing grip. So the moment he started losing that, it was just second nature to him that he had to follow those instructions, and he didn't even attempt to try to get back on the corner, and immediately altered his driving so that he would take the bollard. Like that, the bollard became his focus of attention as soon as he lost grip. So yeah.
That's quite nice. I didn't know about that. I didn't watch the first lap. Did he take the ball out under T2?
Yes, it did.
Oh,
I think both him and Verstappen took the bollards.
nice. Yeah, he did a nice race. Never really sweating it. The only time he was sweating it when the gap came down to him and Verstappen was 5 seconds. But then we saw the telecast, and it was actually him just navigating through like a billion car back markers through the last sector. So it was understandable. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh,
I
I
guess.
know.
Yeah,
Go
Master. Tell me.
ahead.
No, I was just about to wrap up. That's why. Let me give me your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think this is kind like I hope that this is kind of the turnaround for the season that Bottas being able to beat Hamilton maybe he maybe gives him the push to really push forward and possibly cover the gap by the time we arrive in Bahrain.
We've been over this conversation every
Yeah.
single time you win.
No,
So what happened?
no. There's Michael Jordan. There's Michael Jordan, Mr. Sri Lanka.
I want to make a quick correction. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Bottas did not take the ball out at turn two. I just watched the video back.
That's
Uh,
my bad.
yeah, I think he was just about to go off track and shaved speed, which cost him the run through turn two and three. So
My
that's
bad.
why Hamilton got ahead. It's not because he took the ball out. Just a quick correction there.
True. Yeah. So
Sorry about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was saying that I forgot on your my point was. Never mind. What were you saying, Masum? Like,
It's fine, it's fine. It's just something that gives us hope.
okay, yeah,
Well,
I was going to say
yeah.
exactly that. Mr. Jordan Sri Lanka is going to come back and win the next race by 30 seconds. So just forget your hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
Put them in the trash. So trying to let's wrap up this boring. The talk was not as boring as the race as usual it is. Had wonderful mates to talk about that. But as traditions becoming now, everyone in the chat, please name your driver of the day and simultaneously also not your driver of the day. Not your driver of the day does not encounter DNFs, so please just see any
Does
animal.
not encounter DNFs.
Yes, doesn't count DNF. So like, it has to be a guy who finished the race, and he was not your driver of the day. So let's start with you, Masum.
I think my driver of the day would be Verstappen, hands down.
And not the driver of the day.
Probably Grosjean, I would say.
Oh, that's a low blow. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Kapil.
For me, the driver of the day would be Vettel. He played the team game. Awesome. He gave Ferrari their best result. Not the best result, but the best possible result. And not driver of the day, I'd probably say Hamilton. Kind of screwed up his race before the race itself.
True. Chinoy, come on, your thoughts.
It's probably very close between Verstappen and Leclerc for me for driver of the day. But screw it. I'm just gonna go with Verstappen because he finished higher up. That's how it goes in Formula One. Cool. And I think not driver of the day, I would probably go with Russell. Russell had a lot of fights with a lot of good people and looked attractive, but he was nowhere on pace today. Yesterday, I think he was slower than his teammate. He was bad on his tires. He was forced to pit about 3 times, I think, or 2 to 3 times. I don't think
Yep.
he drove well at all yesterday.
Yeah, okay. So moving on to me, I think my driver of the day would be hands down Charles Leclerc with some credit to Vettel because Charles had no business putting that car there where it was. So I would say props to him. And I was gonna leaning at Daniel Kvyat if Daniel had overtaken Ocon, that would be nice. But yeah, my not the driver of the day, you know it. On sign someone else. I'm not gonna say anything. He just signed someone else. Not driver of the day. I can have an opinion. Anyways, sorry guys for this abysmal talk, and I'm glad you enjoyed our armchair analysis, and we hope to see you next time with us, and you too, FBI agent. Thank you for listening us. Please like and subscribe, whatever. Thank you.
Yeah, stay tuned for next week's league races on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday we have challengers, Saturday our feature race with Tier 1, and Sunday our Tier 2. Thank you all for joining in. Tune in soon. Bye.